My next guest has some thoughts on what's really going on with Jensen Huang's visit to China. Derek Scissors is Asia economist at the American Enterprise Institute. Derek, it's good to see you. And you think that I don't know, is he the Derek Rodman here?
Well, he just met with President Trump a couple days ago. Obviously, Jensen Huang goes to China a lot. He talks about China a lot. But in this case, the meeting with Trump, I think, is specially timed. In other words, it wasn't long scheduled. It isn't a normal thing like his trips to China. So I think it's very likely he has a message, and the message may not be very long or very detailed. And if not a message, then he'll represent Trump's attitude when he met with him. Because I don't think, Jensen Huang came in to see the president and didn't talk about China. You think, in other words, he's a go-between between the two leaders? Yeah, I don't want to exaggerate as if, he's the key figure in U.S.-China relations. I just think when somebody is heavily involved in the U.S.-China commercial relationship, as Nvidia is, and he's the CEO, and he travels to China all the time, and is, as said, a rock star in the United States, you don't meet with a president right before you go to China and not carry some information with you. I just think that's very normal. What do you think is the right approach the U.S. should take with Nvidia? Should it be do everything to constrain their leading-edge technology from being deployed in China for as long as possible, even if that amounts to an 8-month delay or Huawei leapfrogs? Or should it be give them market access, the best companies will always win, we will always have the best companies, and so forth? Well, it's certainly not the second one, because the best companies don't always win. The companies that have massive state backing and steal IP or acquire IP in various ways often win, and that is, in fact, the Chinese strategy. I guarantee you that if you were speaking candidly in private, Jensen Huang would say, of course the Chinese are targeting Nvidia. Not next year. They're not going to drive Nvidia out of business next year, but in the next 5 or 10 years, they will target Nvidia, and it isn't a function of the best company. It's a function of who has competitive advantages either on their own or, in the Chinese case, often provided by the government. So, letting the market run free, that's not what happens. It's not what China does in technology or anywhere else. And so that's a very optimistic view of what will happen with Nvidia and with chips 5 years down the road. What about the view on tariffs more broadly with China? We're kind of in this moment of pause. How would you describe the current status quo, and what are the risks as we approach August? Well, we don't see any sign on the U.S. side that we're going to raise tariffs in August. We already have top level. It doesn't apply to all goods. There are major exceptions, but we have top level 55% tariffs on China, the 30% added in this administration and the 25% started in the Trump administration. I could see those just staying where they are. Yes, President Trump could get angry. He seems to have gotten angry at a lot of our trade partners, but there's no sign he's getting angry at China. There's no complaints about magnets. There's a lot of stories about the U.S. trying to organize a trip to Beijing. So I think the outcome on August 12th is probably we'll stay where we are. Yeah. And finally, the new threat this morning about 100% or to whatever the number might be, if it's in Congress, 500% secondary tariffs on those who use Russian oil. I assume we're talking about China in that grouping, right? Yeah, that's a big deal. The president seems to be very upset with Putin at this point. Obviously, he talks about his calls with Putin as being great a lot of the time, so it could change. But if we are going to be serious about secondary sanctions, it's going to affect the Chinese. It'll affect the Chinese on oil. There are other secondary sanctions that are possible. I don't think that would derail the U.S.-China relationship too much. If it's confined to Ukraine and tied to Russia, the Chinese will probably tolerate it.